The Money in the Bank ladder match is a match that is often prone to major botches and blunders. Unfortunately, even though WWE has some of the best pure talent and producers in the world, botches sometimes can't be avoided. Botches in ladder matches aren't anything new, as dating back to the very first WWE ladder match, there were some instances of botching. When WWE introduced the Money in the Bank ladder match in 2005, it was inevitably going to lead to a surge in botches and mistakes. Putting at least 6 wrestlers in a ladder match is on paper at least a recipe for disaster, as it's sometimes a case of too many bodies and ladders being in the ring at one time. Despite this, over the years, the Money in the Bank ladder matches have resulted in some of the finest ladder matches WWE have ever produced. The 2024 installment of the Money in the Bank Premium Live event had its fair share of botches, and some of the most notable ones occurred in standard matches, as names involved didn't need ladders to mess up their scripted spot. So with that being said, join us now as we look at moments that weren't supposed to happen at Money in the Bank 2024. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out our new videos on Wrestlelamia XL. Number 1. Bronbreaker saves Sami Zayn from breaking his neck. And whilst there was some disappointment amongst fans that Bronbreaker lost last night, he certainly showed that he is a future main eventer in his Intercontinental title match against Sami Zayn. One spot in the match saw Zayn attempt a moonsault from the barricade, and Breaker was forced to catch him at the last possible second as Zayn was about to land right on his head. This could have been a total disaster, and thankfully Breaker was able to act without hesitation and save Zayn from a very serious injury. The camera panned towards a visibly angry and frustrated Breaker following the title match, so it looks like the feud between Breaker and Zayn could continue. This should be seen as a welcome move, as the two evidently have solid chemistry, and Breaker seems like the logical choice to dethrone Zayn. Number 2. A major miscommunication. Botches can occur at any time in pro wrestling, and this extends to major world title matches. During the Damian Priest vs Seth Rollins world title match, both men went for respective kicks at the same time, which clearly wasn't planned, so it looked completely off, especially because both men failed to make any contact. This was just a simple case of miscommunication, and unfortunately, due to the stakes in the match and the talent involved, this botch in particular received a ton of attention on social media. Nevertheless, both Priest and Rollins were able to quickly refocus and continue the match as planned. Number 3. A new champion. The finish of the aforementioned Damian Priest vs Seth Rollins match went completely off the rails. When Rollins hit a Falcon Arrow, Priest failed to kick out, and this led to a moment of confusion and panic. It's likely the case that WWE missed the cue to hit Drew McIntyre's theme song, and if this is indeed the case, none of the blame falls on the wrestlers in the ring. However, there has been concern that Priest could be concussed, as he looked completely out of it for the final portion of the match. Thankfully, Priest appears to be perfectly okay hours after the PLE came off the air, so this botch comes down to a production blunder. This is a major blunder from WWE's production team. WWE are the top wrestling company in the world, and they have to execute elements of their production well, or else the wrestlers are going to look incompetent, and unfortunately that is exactly what happened last night. Rollins in particular is a constant professional, so he likely would have been happy once he reached the backstage area, and it would hardly be a surprise if a report surfaced in the coming days that Rollins was furious and he was seeking answers from the WWE's production team. Now, Triple H defended the botch on the post-PLE press conference, and this is what the head of WWE Creative had to say on the matter. Human beings in the ring, mistakes happen, things happen, it is what it is. It's funny for me now looking at that, if that was something I was involved in as a talent, I don't care how good the rest of it was, that would be all I would think about. And to me, it's a shame that that's all people will talk about, and that's all people will hit Damian Priest with while he had a phenomenal performance tonight. But a bunch of people will attack that, criticize that, comment on that. I don't know why, that's just the negative, so that outweighs the positive sometimes. The game went on to specifically defend Priest, who was clearly beating himself up backstage. And to me, I wish I could just go into the back, shut off his phone, have no one talk to him for a while, and just have him think about all the other great stuff that happened in that, and the role that he's been on, and how great of a job he's done as world champion, and what he's done to get there and deserve it, because he deserves all the credit in the world for all those things, and he stepped up to a place where you can see him as a performer now, and I feel like I'm watching a champion come out. I feel like I'm watching a top tier guy. That's on him. That's how he's handled himself and made himself own that position. He's done an incredible job of it. I'm incredibly proud of him as a performer. late in his career, right? To get to this level, something that no one thought he would ever be able to do, he's got himself in incredible shape, done an unbelievable job. I hate for this to be like, oh yeah, you're that guy that didn't kick out that one time. That's a shame part to me because his performance tonight was off the charts, as was Seth, as was Drew's, as was Punk, as was everybody else in this show tonight. It's just the way the world works. As some fans are questioning where the finish which saw Drew McIntyre fail his Money in the Bank cash-in leaves Rollins. As per the stipulation, Rollins can no longer challenge Priest for the world title. Rollins now has a major vendetta against Punk due to Punk in theory costing him the world title, so it'll be interesting to see where this leaves Rollins come SummerSlam next month. It's unlikely that Rollins is left off the card, so maybe Rollins is inserted into the Punk McIntyre match, or maybe Rollins finds some kind of loophole and is eventually inserted into the Priest vs Gunther world title showdown. Number 4, Zoe Stark lands on her head. The women's Money in the Bank ladder match was chaotic. Some of the spots in the match were amongst the wildest Money in the Bank spots of all time, and Zoe Stark seemed insistent on taking as many risks as humanly possible in the match. One notable spot in the match saw Stark attempt a Samoan drop on Lyra Valkyria onto a ladder, and this was completely missed. The problem with this spot was that part of Valkyria's arm landed on the ladder and she was clearly in immense pain, but things then went from bad to worse as Stark attempted to flip into the ring and land a move on a prone Valkyria, but for whatever reason, she bumped right on her head. It looked brutal and it was an immediate concern for Stark's welfare, especially knowing what we know regarding head injuries and CTE. Thankfully, there have been no reports that Stark has been hurt, so it looks like Stark is fine, and it was just a case of Stark having a bad and awkward landing. Number 5, Lyra gets caught in the ropes. Even though Lyra Valkyria was one of the MVPs of the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, she wasn't immune to botches. In a botch spot, Valkyria would apply a front face lock on Io Sky, and when she ascended up the ropes, her legs got tangled up. Both women recovered from this immediately, and the end product looked impressive. Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary covered for the botch well, and it was evidently a case of the ropes not being cooperative with Valkyria's vision. And number 6, the botch low blow. One of the key spots in the Money in the Bank main event saw Tonga Loa interfere and deliver a low blow to Kevin Owens. Unfortunately, despite this being one of the easiest spots in wrestling, Loa somehow messed it up and had to deliver the move not once, but twice. Loa's botch had received a ton of criticism, and it's easy to see why WWE opted to keep him out of the match and on the outside. His work since returning to the WWE hasn't exactly been anything special, and he's quickly being overshadowed by other members of the Bloodline faction, especially Jacob Fatu, who had an insanely good debut last night. Outside the aforementioned botch, the main event of the PLE was relatively botch-free, and the men involved did a great job in closing the event. The 2024 Money in the Bank event will be known for some of the most infamous botches of the year, but it's always bound to happen when 2 out of the 5 matches are multi-person ladder matches. But there you have it, folks, moments that weren't supposed to happen in the 2024 Money in the Bank ladder match. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.